In this episode, we're going to learn how to make a wet mount, a hanging drop slide, and how to inoculate a sim tube. We've seen the wet mount before, but we'll do a quick review. To do the wet mount, you need a glass slide and a cover slip. We will sterilize our needle, insert it till it's red hot, withdraw, and let cool. We will sterilize our needle, insert it. We have our tube of bacteria. You can vortex it, or you can mix it rapidly with your finger. Using my sterile loop and aseptic technique, I'm going to take a loop full of the sample and place it on the slide. And now I will flame my loop. You know the drill. Insert until red hot. Withdraw. And allow to cool. Now that I have my drop on my slide, I'm going to take a cover slip and with either the edge of your loop or with your fingers, gently lower it so that the liquid spreads out. And you want to try to do that without getting any bubbles. Now, to look at this under the microscope, you want to do some different things. First, you want to make sure the light is not shining brightly because we haven't stained it. Because there's no stain, if you have the light shining bright, it can just shine right through the bacteria. So let's go ahead and look at the microscope. Under low power, you want to try to find the edge of that broth droplet, which you can see in our figure here. Now I can go to the next higher power. Notice the edge of my drop is still visible, and I'm going to try to dim the light. You can see that it is evaporating as we watch, which is why it starts to creep. I'm going to go ahead and turn to my high dry. And here we can see some things moving around. Going to brighten it up a little bit now that I know that I'm looking in the right area. Going to brighten it up a little bit. There we go. We'll give it a chance to come into focus. What the bacteria looks like under high dry. You can't really see much. So we are going to go ahead and put oil immersion on the slide. So we have our immersion oil, and I'm going to put a drop right on the slide. Remember that you put it right where the light is shining through. Now, when I spin my oil immersion lens into place, we should be able to see some organisms. If you look at the slide now, we can see different organisms moving. Notice that not all the organisms move. Some of them will be dead, some of them will be stuck to the glass, but there will be some that are moving. Notice that they aren't all in focus at the same time. That's because of the depth of the water. As I change the focus, you'll see that some come into focus while others come out of focus. And there's that edge of the water starting to evaporate. So we'll move away from the edge. So you can see that these organisms are modal because they are moving in this sample. One of the problems with the wet mount, as we saw in this slide, is that the drop evaporates very quickly. And you can see the edge of the drop actually evaporating as we watch. Notice here, we can physically see the drop evaporating as we speak. If you want to observe a slide for an extended period of time, a wet mount just isn't going to do it. It evaporates too quickly. So in cases like that, we make a hanging drop slide. We use something called a depression slide. And it's called a depression slide not because of how it makes you feel, but because there is this well in the center of it, and if you catch it in the light, you can see that. With the hanging drop slide, the bacteria is not placed on the slide itself. Instead, the bacteria is placed on the cover slip. I'm going to take a cover slip, and I'm going to take a toothpick. Come on. And some Vaseline or petroleum jelly. And I'm going to put a small amount of petroleum jelly on the corners of the cover slip. This is just to act like glue to hold the cover slip in place. You don't want to use too much, because if you do, you'll just see petroleum jelly when you look at it under the microscope. The toothpick will go into biohazard. My loop is already sterile from before, so I'm going to take my sterile loop and get a sample of the bacteria. Have my bacteria. I'm going to take off the cap, insert my sterile loop, and place a loop full on the cover slip. Recap my tube and flame my loop. Insert, let it get red hot. Thank goodness this doesn't take very long. And then let it cool. Now I'm going to take my depression slide. This side has the well in it. And I'm going to take that well and flip it and push it on my drop so that my drop is sitting inside the well. Now I'm going to invert the slide so that I have the cover slip on top. The cover slip will be on top. The drop will be hanging from the cover slip, and all of that will be sitting inside the well. When you view this under the microscope, you'll view it with the cover slip facing up, and you'll use the same techniques that we used with the hanging drop. And here we see our hanging drop under oil. With this, we can find an edge, and it won't move that much like it did in the wet mount. here we can see a faint outline. That white-ish line running down the middle of the screen is the edge of the drop, and you can see that it's stationary. That's because the drop is enclosed in this well with that Vaseline seal around it, so it doesn't evaporate as well. And you can view for a much longer period of time. These can last for half an hour to an hour. The last thing is how to make a sim tube. A sim tube is a semi-solid media. It's semi-solid, which means it has agar in it, but not as much as an agar plate. So it's very soft. If you were to leave it like this for a while, it would actually flow. To do this, we need an inoculating needle, which looks like this. Notice that the needle looks very like a loop, except it comes to a point instead of having a loop at the end. Just like before, we need to sterilize the needle before we use it. So I'm going to flame my needle. Insert it. Let it get red hot. And then I'll retract it and let it cool. Now I need my sample of bacteria. We'll mix it up. And to take my sample, I'm going to remove the lid, take my needle in, dip it the whole way. So now there's bacteria on my needle. Replace the cap. I'm going to take my sim tube and just put my needle straight in, about 3/4 of the way down, and pull it straight out and recap the tube. I'm going to flame my needle, insert into the back of the incinerator, allow it to get red hot, withdraw it, and let it cool. And I'm done with the back of the incinerator for the day, so I'll turn it off. Now that I have my sim tube, I'm going to go ahead and label it. Put that on my test tube. We'll put it in the incubator, and we'll look at it next time.